This is the face of a woman facing charges in one of the worst cases of child abuse that police in Wisconsin say they have ever seen. A 4-year-old boy allegedly murdered. Police say his injuries were the most, quote, extensive and severe they have witnessed in their careers. And as police continued to investigate, the parents, they found that the boy was not the only alleged victim in this case. And just wait until I show you how both parents facing charges in this case tried to lie to save themselves. We're on The Case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Police in this case out of Wisconsin have released a very detailed criminal complaint about what they say happened to a 4-year-old boy. It is very difficult to talk about, but it is important to talk about. This is 31-year-old Charlotte Kurek and 21-year-old Devario Cruz. They're parents of a 4-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. They're twins. Charlotte has 3 kids as well from a previous relationship. All 5 of her kids were impacted and are alleged victims in one way or another in this case, and I'll explain why. Before I get into the details of this story, let me warn you that the authorities have said that this is one of, if not the worst case of child abuse they have ever seen. So this all began less than a week ago, October 18th in the morning. It was a Saturday in West Allis, Wisconsin, which is just outside of Milwaukee.
Engine 63 and Red 63, advanced life support, 10823 West Greenfield Avenue.
That was the call that brought EMTs to this Dairy Queen on Greenfield Avenue. It was a 911 call from a mom with her son in the car. He was unresponsive, and when the EMTs got there, they knew something was wrong, so they called the police. The 911 caller, again, was that boy's mom. Her name, Charlotte Kurek. Her son's body was limp in the car. The boy was not breathing. Police write that he had bruises all over his body, and that included 12 distinct bruises just on his face. They say he also smelled of urine, and it was clear that he hadn't bathed in some time, according to police. They just described the injuries in the criminal complaint as, quote, horrific. The boy's name is Dante Campbell. Police rushed him to the hospital in hopes they could resuscitate him and bring him back to life. Now, police say on top of the bruising all over his body, Dante's gums were, quote, bone white. And that, they say, meant that he had been without oxygen for some time. Police then asked the mom, Charlotte, what happened? And this is what she told them as she was, quote, crying on her knees in the parking lot of the Dairy Queen. Charlotte allegedly claimed that Dante received all of these injuries after a fall down the stairs. She claimed that Dante lost his footing, and then, on top of that, a bunch of stuff from the top of the stairs, like bikes and garbage bags, landed on the boy. She said the boy, quote, was crying, but otherwise appeared normal. Charlotte then claims, according to this police report, that in the morning, Dante wouldn't wake up. He was limp, he wasn't moving, and that is when she decided it was time to get him some help. But she didn't call 911 from the house, police say. Actually, what she did was take Dante, put him in the car, as well as put his twin sister in the car, and drop the twin sister off at a friend's house. Then she's driving, she calls 911, she pulls into the Dairy Queen, and that's when police arrive. Not only would the medical examiner say there was just no way that the boy could have that many injuries, those types of injuries from just a fall down the stairs, it became even more sketchy, it seems, when police asked if they could go to Charlotte's house and investigate the stairs she was talking about, and she said, quote, that doesn't sit right with me. Police would later get a search warrant. They would go through the home and they would find plenty of reasons as to why maybe she didn't want them to go inside her house. Now, police also asked Charlotte where her 3 other children were from a previous relationship, and she told them that they were not at her house in West Allis. When police eventually went to Charlotte's home, a woman showed up and told officers that she was there to get Charlotte's 3 kids because Charlotte had just texted her to go get those kids from the home. So it appears that Charlotte didn't think police would actually go to her house. Officers went inside the home. They found an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old, and an 11-year-old alone. This, another alleged lie by this mom. Now, one of the children, police say, without prompting, blurted out, Dante is dead. Another child said that Dante fell off a bunk bed and that they heard a big bang during the night. Charlotte and Dante's dad, who I'll talk about more in just a moment, allegedly locked the kids in a room. It's unclear how they got out, but police say when they walked in the home, one thing was very apparent, and that was the smell of freshly burnt marijuana they say. A search of the house also found guns, large amounts of weed, and scales. Dante's twin sister was left at a friend's house, and when police went to that friend's house, they found that the little girl had a bandage over her right eye. Her right eye was swollen. She also had bruising on her face, on her head. Some of her skin was missing as well. The bruising actually was all over her body. Now, this is where this story gets incredibly sad when you think of the lives that these kids were allegedly living. Because when police asked that little girl, just 4 years old, what happened, she answered, quote, "Daddy hurt me." Her clothing was also soiled. It appeared she had not bathed in some time, according to police. I typed Charlotte Kurek's name into TruthFinder.com and her profile came up. And one thing with TruthFinder is if someone has different aliases or names that may be linked to them, TruthFinder can figure that out. And we certainly saw that in this case. We use TruthFinder here at Law&Crime. It helps us learn more information about the people who are involved in our stories. But even if you don't work in true crime, it can be a great tool to give you some peace of mind if you need to look someone up and you want to learn a little bit more about them. Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's a teacher at school. It's a great resource to give you some peace of mind. It's one of the largest public record search services in the United States, and with the paid subscription service, you get access to unlimited reports about almost anyone. And right now, you can get 50% off your first month of confidential background reports. Just go to truthfinder.com/OTC. Now here's the mugshot for the girl's father. 21-year-old Devario Cruz. Now, if what's being alleged is true, this man is just a monster. I'll have more on him in just a moment. Now, the friend who Charlotte dropped the 4-year-old off with said that back in June, they started to notice some bruising on the bodies of the twins. They actually thought about calling Child Protective Services about it, but they didn't because they were concerned if they did that, Charlotte wouldn't let them see the twins anymore. Now, during the search of the house, police also say they found a closet with what appeared to be blood. It was in the twins' bedroom. There was also a bathroom with a strong smell of rubbing alcohol, police write. Police interrogated Charlotte, the mom, and this is where they confront her with what they have uncovered and what they have put together in their investigation as she lied, allegedly, about saying that Dante was hurt because he fell down the stairs and then just suddenly in the middle of the night stopped breathing. That morning, Charlotte said her partner went to wake up the twins, Cruz, and that's when he discovered Dante was dead. She claims that Cruz told her, quote, "I killed my kid." So at this point of the interview, it seems that Charlotte is at least somewhat coming clean about what allegedly happened, but she lied so much to this point apparently. How can you trust anything she says? Now, Charlotte told police, quote, "My son looked like he got his A-word beat by a grown man." Charlotte told police that she lied about the stairs because she was afraid of Cruz. CPS also was apparently already involved with this family. Charlotte claimed that Cruz was dodging talking to CPS for their investigation, but then police also note that Charlotte has the social worker for CPS in her phone as CPS B-word. Cruz was also interrogated by police, and he also allegedly lied about what happened. At first, he said that he had no idea how Dante had so many bruises on his body. But the evidence just doesn't make that seem like a realistic defense, according to police. Cruz also claimed that Dante had fallen down the stairs, so very similar to what Charlotte originally had said. Cruz then reportedly admitted that he had hit Dante in what he called discipline. Now remember, this boy is just 4 years old, and Cruz said on a scale of 1 to 10 how hard he hit the boy. The answer was a 7 or an 8. 10 would have been the hardest you could have hit a person of any age. That's according to the criminal complaint. Now, police allegedly confronted this man about all the bruises on his son's body, and yet this dad tried to protect himself again in a very twisted way, allegedly saying, quote, "I was just hitting him in the mouth." At first, he admitted that he was just using his hands, but then admitted in the past that he had used a coat hanger. This is according to police. Yet, he tried to make it seem like it wasn't that big of a deal, police say, because he said the hanger was just plastic. Now, these parents allegedly lied multiple times to police, but their older children, the oldest being just 11 years old, told police that Dante never got a break from being beat. The children also said that Cruz would force the twins to stand on Legos as a form of punishment, and he would also throw them against the wall. And this line is really hard to read. It's incredibly sad because all of this, when Cruz would allegedly beat Dante, Dante would also call for his mom. And Charlotte, allegedly, did nothing about it, the other kids say. Police also say when they discovered that Dante was unresponsive at their home, it's important to note that neither of them used their cell phones, which they had, to call 911. Both parents are facing serious charges right now. Devario Cruz is charged with reckless homicide, child abuse and neglect. Charlotte Kurek, the mom, is also charged. She is facing counts including chronic child neglect where the consequence is death. Join us now to talk more about this is criminal defense attorney Eric Faddis. Thanks for walking through, one of the more horrific stories that I think we've had, and that's saying a lot here for Law and Crime and what we cover every single day. But this one is definitely something that sticks out because it's just so difficult. Based on the evidence we know of at this point, seems like a lot of evidence from the medical examiner about bruising on this boy's body as well as some other injuries. From the prosecutor's standpoint, what would you say right now is the most important evidence that they have against these two parents?
So, critically, the medical examiner's report documents all of these injuries to this young child, and there's no, it doesn't appear that there's some kind of innocent explanation for these things, and so those injuries are key. What the prosecution also is going to try to do is really turn the parents against one another. It seems like they have already sort of enlisted the mother to give incriminating evidence about the boyfriend and how this could have been caused, and so that witness testimony is going to be critical because when these things happen, they happen behind closed doors, and there aren't a lot of witnesses or sometimes any witnesses to testify about it.
And she seemed, just from what I've read through, that she was lying from the very beginning. She said that the boy fell down the stairs, that just could not have happened, according to the medical examiner, which is how many injuries this young boy Dante had. But if she's going to be the key witness, and I know that there's other children in the home who could also be key witnesses in this case, but if she's going to be the star witness for the prosecution and she's facing charges, I could see a defense attorney for the suspect, Cruz, saying that this woman's just lying and she lied to police the second that they showed up. How do prosecutors push back on that?
Sure. Yeah. In my review of reports, Chris, the mom at some point says that the boyfriend was sort of heavy-handed in his discipline, implying that is how the child got these injuries. But yeah, her inconsistent statements are going to be a problem. Her reputation, at least according to reports, doesn't sound terribly credible when it comes to parenting, when it comes to keeping children safe. As a prosecutor, you don't get to pick your witnesses, unfortunately. You kind of have to go with what you've got. And so they're going to have a tall order in trying to get a jury to believe this mother's statements that sort of implicate the boyfriend when she has been contradictory in the past.
And then looking at them potentially going against each other, how does that work in terms of who could go on trial first if they're separate trials, and figuring out exactly what the timeline would be of prosecuting both these parents?
That can be a matter of strategy for the prosecutor in looking at the case. Sometimes what they might do is they might set the mother's trial first to apply additional pressure because they want the mother to be as cooperative with the prosecution as she can. And when she's sort of, for lack of a better term, looking down the barrel of years in prison, that is a motivating factor to be a cooperating witness. So I wouldn't be surprised if they'd set the mother's trial first, apply pressure, get her completely on the prosecution side, and then tee that up for the boyfriend's trial, which would come subsequently.
And the boyfriend is facing charges including reckless homicide. The mom, Charlotte Curett, she is facing neglect charges, serious neglect charges, but she is not being charged in connection to an alleged homicide. But she was in the home. She had a lot of evidence, apparently, in her statements that she provided to prosecutors. What's the difference between her facing neglect charges or accessory to murder if more evidence obviously came to light?
Sure. So, obviously the neglect charges are less serious, still very serious. But presently it sounds like the prosecution is not alleging that the mother caused the death. That's really the critical fact here on which the cases turn. That being said, as the investigation proceeds, they're going to look at, hey, what knowledge did the mother have? What actions did she take? Did she engage in any measures to try to prevent this? Or alternatively, did she engage in any measures that could have contributed to what happened, that could have tried to cover up what happened? She was already inconsistent with the police. That in and of itself could merit an obstruction charge. So there could be additional charges they tack on, especially as we get closer to trial. Not uncommon for prosecutors to enhance their leverage by adding charges as you approach the eve of trial.
Yeah, and all of this happened roughly a week ago. So we're in the early stages of this, the early stages of an investigation. According to police, the twin of Dante, who's the young boy who died, she had injuries, and it appears that she also allegedly was abused. It doesn't appear that either of them are facing specific charges related to her as of yet. What would be the process of, or would prosecutors tack on charges related to some evidence it appears they have of abuse allegedly against the young girl?
Sure, that's entirely within the realm of possibility, and that could be coming down the road. What it also kind of indicates, perhaps, is that there may have been a pattern of neglect within that house, and if prosecutors and their medical team conclude at some point that this pattern of neglect contributed to the death, then the mother is not out of the woods on a homicide charge either. That sort of pattern of neglect and abuse is really something prosecutors look at. It's my understanding that there were social workers involved with this family before. So it's something that's documented and something that's going to be used against both parents, I anticipate.
And there was part of it where there was a witness or someone who the daughter was dropped off with. And when she was interviewed by police, she talks about how she had noticed, I think it was back in June, that this boy had bruises on his body. But she didn't want to report it to DCF because she was concerned that the child would be, that the mom would just not let her see the kid ever again. And apparently they love the young boy. But I think of that, and even though DCF was already in touch with this family, like they didn't report that. Could someone face charges if they say, hey, back in June I saw this, but I didn't do anything about it?
So typically, Chris, there is not an affirmative duty to report some kind of criminal activity unless you're a mandatory reporter. So that's going to depend in part on the laws of that state and whether some sort of caretaker or caregiver has such a duty. Typically, they don't. And so, in looking at it, we would want someone to make a report that would look out for the safety of those children, but they're usually not legally obligated to do so. So, that decision will be, on the mind of that person, I imagine, for some time now, but it likely will not enter into the court system.
CPS, DCF, these types of agencies, they don't release a lot of information publicly about their interactions beyond saying that they were known to certain families, that they had been in touch with certain families. It just seems like there were so many bruises on this boy's body, and CPS was in touch with the family. And I also will say, I think those agencies, it's a tough job because we often only hear about them in moments like this where you're like, what were you doing? How could this have been prevented? Just in your work, how is it that you've seen that these organizations can be in touch with the family, but then it does seem like there was this pattern of abuse over a period of time?
Yeah, like you mentioned, they've definitely got a tough gig in some respects. It can often be thankless. They're often dealing with horrific subject matter. And on top of that, sometimes they are overburdened with caseloads. Sometimes they are not the most qualified. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but I'm just saying these are common considerations that come up when talking about these sort of issues. What it looks like is, unfortunately, drastic enough measures were not taken. There could have been more done, but hindsight's always 20/20, and there's also a motivation on behalf of these folks to keep the family together. So they are a bit torn in these scenarios and have to make really critical judgment calls that can have high stakes outcomes.
For Cruz, the suspect, the dad, who's accused of killing his own son, he gave an interview to police after he was given his Miranda rights. he decided to continue talking, and he made some pretty incriminating statements, apparently according to what police have written down. As a criminal defense attorney, if you were to take this case up for him, how do you handle that, knowing that he's almost admitted to everything that happened after Miranda rights and after, did not have an attorney present in the room with him at the time?
Sure. As a defense attorney, and I'm not sympathizing with this particular person, but I'm saying as a criminal defense approach, you have to explore all potential avenues of innocence. You have to explore alternative suspects. And I think that is a big potential defense here. Oftentimes, not often, but it's not terribly uncommon for there to be false confessions. Look, a person's in a room with a police officer, there's a dead child, and sometimes that interview is steered in a particular way that causes them to make incriminating statements. And so these are things that at least have to be explored on the defense side. And oftentimes, like I said, they pit the two adult caretakers against one another. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Cruz comes out and says, no, this was actually the mom. I didn't want to get her in trouble. I was scared when I made these statements, but now I'm coming clean.
And then thinking about just some of these cases, what always stands out to me, and this is more like generally speaking, is both of these people, it seemed like they were trying to save themselves from the very beginning. Here they are abusing, allegedly, this child. She was witness to it, allegedly. He's the one who allegedly did it. I'm saying allegedly because obviously innocent until proven guilty. But I mean, just how common is it in these cases that you see these alleged abusers really just try to protect themselves in situations like this?
Oh gosh, I mean, it's incredibly common. You look at, like I said, you have a dead child. This is alarming to anybody. You're feeling this law enforcement heat on you. They're clearly wise to something nefarious that happened. And so, oftentimes these individuals come up with different stories about what could have happened. They blame other people. And sometimes they're telling the truth in terms of what they're proclaiming and their innocence. And there can be medical issues involved. So it can be a complicated case to prosecute and of course, a complicated case to defend as well.
Yeah, and I think too, one other part of the story that just stood out to me as well is they have this moment where apparently they find the boy in the house and it's like, oh my gosh, what do we do? And then it's taking the twin to someone else's home. It's getting in the car, driving somewhere else. No one calls 911 until she's in the car. They had cell phones. They could have called 911 and they could have come to, I don't know if it would have saved this boy's life, but that's what you should do in that situation. What stood out to you about just how they apparently reacted after making the discovery inside the home?
One thing that jumps out is I'll be interested to see how the prosecution's medical team opines on whether this kid could have made it had there been prompt help and intervention that was pursued. Because if that's the case, and there was a window of time within which this child could have been saved, and instead these parents got scared and didn't report anything, didn't call 911, didn't immediately seek medical attention, that's of course problematic. We're sort of verging into the realm of some sort of criminally negligent homicide in terms of if that negligent conduct was a substantial factor in why the kid died, we could see even more charges against the mother, even if the death blow was not at her hands.
Not sympathizing with either of them, but just thinking of defenses. And I know police, they walked into her home and it reeked of marijuana. Apparently he admitted to allegedly selling drugs. He was just a drug dealer, apparently. Can substance use or substance abuse addiction be used as a defense in any of these cases, or can that be used as something to help a defendant who has a lot of evidence stacked against them?
It's typically not a statutory defense or anything like that, but it can be used as a mitigating factor. If I was defense, I would have not only a mental health evaluation done, but a substance abuse evaluation done. And I would seek to explain to the prosecutor the series of events that gave rise to this case. Now, it's not excusable that they were in the grips of addiction if they were. But that being said, it is part of the entire picture, part of the entire entire story. Perhaps they dealt with challenges that other folks didn't have to deal with. Perhaps they had, housing challenges, food challenges, who knows? All of those challenges are important to identify as a defense attorney so you can tell the whole story as to why this occurred and try to seek some sort of a mitigated outcome that isn't decades in prison.
No, and we'll see how this story moves forward. It's obviously incredibly sad. Seems like there is a lot of evidence that the prosecution will have. What the defense will be, we'll wait and see on that. Eric Faddis, criminal defense attorney. It's always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for being with me.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you.
This is the GoFundMe for Dante Campbell. This money will go to funeral expenses, the page says, as well as to help the siblings of Dante Campbell, kids who have faced so much alleged abuse at the hands of their own mom and her boyfriend. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.